Hey, Stephen Platinum here, and this is going to be a Pro Wrestler's Handbook. The video cut out, and I'm not going to do a second part. I'm just going to start over, and I'm going to make it much more succinct and get to the point much faster. Long story short, one thing that shocked me about the last Pro Wrestler's Handbook number 6 was not the booking part, which is what I really made the video for, but the first part, which I thought was so elementary that I shouldn't even add it, except for the fact that I needed to make the video a little longer about match structure. But I was shocked at the amount of wrestlers that contacted me and said that they'd either learned terms that they'd never heard before, or they had had terms defined for them that they weren't sure what they meant, or that they had never been taught any of that formally by any kind of trainer. Tells me that I shouldn't shy away from doing what I consider to be simple stuff. I think there's not only is there little things that possibly anybody can learn, but some people need all of it. And fuck, part of my job is to not only clean up wrestling in the state of Georgia specifically, but to teach where I can. And a lot of bookers are saying that they're using the advice and going to try stuff out, and that's great. So I'm just going to break down using a number of the rules that I've already highlighted and a number of things that I've already talked about and put it in the context of a card. Now, for the purposes of this discussion and for this teaching element, there's going to be 6 matches on this card. Obviously, yours might be far different, whatever. Match number 1. It's important, right? You don't go out on the floor. You don't fight on the floor. You don't do a ref bump. You don't do anything too fucking crazy. Now, people say, oh, you got to fire up the crowd. I disagree. I think the first match is about setting the tone for the card, right? Maybe you debut a wrestler, but you only debut a wrestler because 1/3 of your stuff should be introducing new things. Remember that. You can be introducing a new wrestler whose job is to do what? Show that he can work and to get his gimmick over, his or her gimmick over, right? You know what I don't see in the first match very often that I think would be interesting? Why not a women's match? Why not a really great women's match to open the show? Why not a really great tag match to open the show? As long as you don't follow that tag match with another tag match soon thereafter. In any case, that's your first match. Second match, least important match on the card. But that doesn't mean you can't accomplish anything. You should try to accomplish something in each and every match. That second match, maybe that's your palate cleanser if your first match went a little long. Because if that first match goes a little longer than you want it to, or that you're intending for it to be a little longer, now your crowd is like, well, this is just the first match. God, are we going to get 6 matches that long? And then you hit them with the palate cleanser. Now all bets are off. It's great. Their energy is back up. Think of the second match this way. Instead of just throwing it to the wolves, which is what most bookers do, what did we do in the first match, which we can now accentuate and correct if need be in the second match? Third match. People think of it as sort of similar to the second match. Oh, we gotta just, I would say if you didn't do a palate cleanser in the second match, the third match is a great spot to put it. If you're going to do a palate cleanser, you certainly do not have to, and nor should you all the time, or it loses its effectiveness. That third match, what you don't want it to do is to completely destroy your fourth match. You don't want to do so much in that third match that the fourth match can't live up to the hype. That third match is a good place to put a transitional thing. You can end something there. So if you have the third in a series of matches between 2 people, that really isn't that big of a deal. It's just something that's sort of come about or you had to book. You might want to end it here. You can start a feud here as well, or you can plant the seeds to something bigger happening on a later date here. I often would have 3 matches and then a talk segment before the fourth match, the match right before intermission. And you're only going to have 1 intermission, guys. Fourth match, opinions vary. A lot of people put this as their semi-main, which is perfectly fine. What I like to think of it as is I wanted them going into the intermission talking about what had just happened. So if you're going to do something major in the show that you don't want to close with, this is a good place to put it so they can digest it and reset for intermission. Then we come back to the 5th match. Sometimes this would be a semi-main kind of thing. Often what it was its goal was, if I saw something that was important but diametrically different to what we were doing in the main, this is where I would put that match. That way you set a nice contrast to what you're doing in the main event. Makes sense? Of course, this all seems very basic and transitional. And then I would usually have some kind of talking segment again that would happen after that fifth match, right before the main event. This way people can reset, people can recharge, and give you everything that you want them to give to you for your main event. And sometimes this part could have if your main event is not going to have a hook and drag into your next show, and your show should always have some element of hook and drag, where you're taking the audience and you're pulling them interest-wise into the next show, then you can do that in the segment here. I say talking segment, meaning sometimes it could be something that's not a match, but gets us interested in what's going to happen in the future. I always presented main events as different from the rest of the card. If it was a title match, I would bring both wrestlers to the ring with their entrance without introducing them until they were in the ring, and I would make a big deal about it. That's an example. Other ways you can set the main event apart, even something as simple as dimming the lights and then putting them back on strongly. Something to signify that this is what you came for, and now here it is. It's very exciting. Any cues you can give to an audience for them to embrace the main event and treat it as something special and different, you want to do that. Then your main event. What's the point of the main eventers, right? In the mid card, literally the middle of the card, match 2, 3, 4, and 5 perhaps, what are their jobs? To get embroiled in feuds, right? And to put their gimmicks in conflict with one another. In the main event, what was the job? Create the hype, live up to the hype. That's what the main event's for. You can end it in a cliffhanger. You can end it in a match being made for next time. You can end it ambiguously if it's a non-important show, especially with a resolution to take place at the next show for your hook and drag. But in any case, do you want to always give the main event the most amount of time? Not always. Keep careful track of the times of your matches. You want to set standards and routines that your audience can get used to. That way, when you get them used to something, now you can use expectation and alter things. If you're always reinventing the wheel with every card and changing what you're doing every card, your audience cannot have a sense of comfort, which is a lot of coming to a wrestling show again and again and again. There has to be an element of comfort. So that way, when you make them uncomfortable by surprising them, shocking them, having a turn of some kind, that it creates an effect that you want of surprise in a pleasant way, and not surprise as in, oh shit, you're pregnant? We didn't want that. That's not the effect you want. You want the effect of, oh my God, you're pregnant? You know what? I didn't even know I was ready to have a baby, but you know what? I think we are, and I think it's going to be wonderful, and I'm so happy. That's the kind of surprise that you want. You know? And you'll get that if you've set up a sort of a rhythm of your shows. Stop thinking of your shows as self-contained units, or even as a hook and drag to the next show, and think of them as a note in a beautiful song. And all of those 6 matches and 2 segments that are not matches, and even the intermission, if you're clever enough, can all be different notes in the same beautiful chord. Start thinking of wrestling, booking a wrestling card, organizing a match, an angle, all that stuff in non-traditional wrestling terms once in a while. Are you good at music? Are you fascinated with music? Are you a big football fan? Then figure out what are things that you like about football, and how can I incorporate these elements into pro wrestling if you are a booker or a promoter, person who runs a show, or even a top-level talent. Have you ever thought about that before? Of course you haven't. It's time to. I had a lot of experience with theaters, and so I captured theatrical elements in my wrestling show. I, I'm giving you one of my secrets. I would think of, when I thought about a show and how I was going to book it out, what I wanted was the stage picture at the end, meaning what is the tableau that we're setting up at the end? What is the image that I want the crowd to leave with? When we had the Empire take over, what I did was I worked backwards. Me bleeding on one rope. Jay Fury, babyface, bleeding on another rope. The entire Empire in the ring triumphant. Shane Marks with the new Empire title and Jeff G. Bailey triumphant. That was the stage picture, and we worked backwards. Sometimes the stage picture was somebody celebrating unabashedly in glory. And then you worked backwards. Sometimes it was, I'd come up with an idea of, what I've never seen? I've never seen everybody dismissed before they got to see the main event of a wrestling show. So we did a thing where we formed this group called We Are Three and have them destroy everything so badly and create so much havoc that we had to end the show before the main event. I'll tell you what it did. It got We Are Three over instantly. But all of that stemmed from a theatrical picture. What's the stage picture that I want as the director? And then how do we get there? What are you good at? What are you interested in? What are you a fan of? And why are you a fan of that thing? And then incorporate those feelings and emotions that you have, figure out how they got there artistically and technically, and see what you can incorporate into a wrestling show. That is how wrestling is going to improve, evolve, and get better. People always love to say, wrestling never changes and it's all been done and it's all been, that is horseshit and that is fucking lazy. And is that what you're going to hide behind? Or are you going to learn the rules so you can break them? Are you going to figure out the real truths of wrestling so you can use them to your advantage? And are you going to Medici effect this bitch and bring in elements from entertainment, sports, and God knows what else, and find a way to incorporate it in your wrestling show so it's not like anybody else's, and your audience will love you for it? This has been the Pro Wrestler's Handbook.